those areas right along in there. We did also take into account areas adjacent to communities like Fallon out in Churchill County. We've got a lot of land right up against the city, or actually in the cities as well.
More urban interfaces down to your junction.
Yes, it's about as close as we get to urban. Alternative E is the agency preferred. It is a mixed alternative. We've taken pieces from all of the other alternatives. This is a draft document at this time, so we do have the option when we go into our proposed and into the decision to pick and choose from alternatives. We do not have to choose one complete alternative, so we can pick parts that work and based on comment. We do have one area down by the Peterson Mountains that was proposed as lands with wilderness characteristics. We have considered that within our document. It does have some management action to kind of preserve that unencumbered feeling there. And it does bleed over into Lassen County. I kind of tried to keep things specific to Lassen County. On slide 7, we talk about recreation and travel management. The acres and the percentages are for the district as a whole. They're not tied to specifically Lassen County. We do not have any special recreation management areas proposed in Lassen County. We do have some extensive recreation management areas along those Peterson Mountains and then leading more over into actually Washoe County. Yes?
So, on alternative A, looking at the recreation travel management, on open, it's 80%, over 3 million, almost 4 million acres. And then you look at alternative E, which is preferred, you only have 51% that's going to be open.
If I could hold on your question, you're 2 slides ahead of me. I'll get there. So on slide 8 is just a picture. The orange area shows the extensive recreation management areas under alternative E as the agency preferred. So you can see how it does come into Lassen County. So on slide 9, we talk about recreation and the open, limited, closed areas. Currently, most of the district is open to cross-country travel. That is alternative A, the 3.8 million. Within Lassen County, the land is actually undesignated. It is not open, limited, or closed. It's undesignated. It is managed as open. So a lot of the difference between the 3.8 million under alternative A, open, is that open designation for BLM does not really follow current policy and management guidance. We are going to a limited to existing roads and trails, which is why you see a large discrepancy or difference in alternative E under the limited. We have 4.8 million or 4.7 million within our district will be limited. Under alternatives B, D, and E, the agency preferred, all of Lassen County would be limited to existing roads and trails. We are currently in the process of gathering road data and trail data because the next step after the resource management plan decision is made is to go into travel management planning, where we actually look at road A as being open, road B being just for mechanized travel. But that's the next step. Does that answer your question?
Kind of sort of how is that going to affect the community?
A lot of those will be on existing roads and trails. A lot of that is also tied to their raising permits, which is a separate process, and is looked at when they start.
But is that going to limit them in the grazing permits to put salt out, get more water resources?
It could possibly, as not being open, they couldn't go cross country with their car.
No, take the 4-wheeler or something, take the salt out, take something else. And they just don't do that.
Probably not. But again, a lot of it's tied to their grazing permit, and without knowing what is actually in their permit and as a permitted use, I can't really answer that because all the permits are different. It also goes on what's proposed as far as do they have water hauling proposed within their permit? Is that a permitted use within the grazing permit?
I have a follow-up on Mr. Alba's question. So right now, we're basically in an undesignated area where we don't have any, it's not even open and limited, but it's basically undesignated.
It's undesignated.
So under your proposal, particularly under alternate E, and we're going to look at slide 11, which is jumping ahead a couple more, you have the yellow area and then you have some red area. hoping that you can maybe differentiate on that. But what is the motivation of the policy shift that would create a limited amount which would preclude the, even under a grazing permit, obviously you're going to manage that separately, curtail the ability, I mean, I can understand if we're like a huge area of your district, we're talking about a relatively small area, and it's relatively close to the populated area being from Truckee Meadows from Washoe County. It is accessible to Lassen County residents. What is the advantage of curtailing any sort of utilization of that small area? I mean, is there something there that we don't know about that you're studying that causes it, or we're just administratively have decided we need, have a quota or some sort of preset benchmark that we're trying to achieve, and that's what's motivating us to bring about the change? Because personally, I think the position that most of us in the county would have, if we want to move it from an undesignated area, which I can appreciate, moving it to an open environment versus a limited environment would be the preferred choice.
Okay. I think I have two parts to answer your question. When the interdisciplinary team and our cooperating agencies went into looking at different ways of doing travel management, when we looked at open areas, cross-country travel, we had like a sand area. We have the Sand Mountain area out in Churchill County, or Hungry Valley, where they can go cross-country. There are no designated roads and trails in those areas. We also looked at playas as being open to cross-country travel. And we have spelled out those within a summary table within the document and on the map so that you can see exactly how many acres and where those acres are located. When we looked at closed designations, we were looking at specific resources that took precedent, if you will, over the recreation component of the resource management plan. Habitat areas for sensitive species or cultural resources. Again, it's pretty limited. Everything else, if it's not open or it's not closed, falls into limited. The second part is the beauty of this document right now is this is an analysis. Since everything is undesignated and managed as open now, when we get to that decision point and the final EIS and then the decision that will come after, we still have that ability, and we need to hear from Lassen County that that's what you want, because we still can make that decision to leave it or to designate it open. We can still do that. At this point, it's just analysis. That's all it is. And that's within the range that we're looking at. So we could make that change. And we're looking for public comments and even...
I appreciate that, but I would hope that when you put that out for the public comment, that you would state the rationale and the justification that you see by offering the document as to why you think the limited designation is the preferred option versus putting it into the open designation.
Okay.
In other words, I think in order to critique that decision, I think it would help the public to be able to react and say, yeah, what about this, or what about that you ought to take into consideration. I'm not sure how this is going to affect countries anywhere. I know one of the big issues that we've had dealing with our California realm office is, in terms of dealing with travel management dedications and all the little cherry stems going into wilderness areas or around wilderness areas and the like, in terms of how, there's roads that people can get to, but once they, do that and they're out there on foot hunting their prey and they bag a buck or whatever, and now they got to get it back, and a lot of hunters use, these little quads and so forth, and now you're off of the road, but they're off into that land. That obviously is going to be an issue they're going to want to address, and are we going to preclude the ability for hunters to use what has become a modern, acceptable convenience as part of the hunting exercise? Very few hunters I know don't hunt with having a quad to be able to haul back, their catch. And that's an issue that we've already have had extensive discussion, and I think the county has been, and the residents of the county have been very much engaged in the past here. So obviously that's going to be an interest for this part of the county and their interests.
I will make note of that and make sure that gets into our comments, so that we look at it between draft and final.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be part of that process, because I think leaving that out is going to shortchange the ability of public to give you maybe some of, or stimulate some of the comments you've otherwise received.
Richard, I would like to see the town participate in this as far as keeping, because we're an agricultural-based community. And we've got to keep the resources open, with the ability for the committee to take care of it. Whether it's taking a trailer out to go get a sick cow or an injured cow, and then to go out and offer to get it. Getting them to take the quads to go fix the fence. It's out there, to take the materials with them to fix the fence, etc. I mean, you've got to leave those things open to the committee so that they are able to manage their permit out there and take care of it. Otherwise, you're just going to drive the people off of it. And that is not what we do.
And it would be nice if the policies that say the Eagle district or area that we have here, just letting to this, that we have, consistent and compatible definitions and approaches. So managing one way here and a different way there, and that's kind of a close confines. Now, I'm not saying that maybe it's true for what happens in the rest of the Nevada area, but at least in the California holdings you have, there be some reflection as to what the adjoining districts are doing in terms of managing similar kind of resources as it relates to whether it's permittees, recreationists, or hunters, or whatever the like may be.
We have been keeping that in mind, the consistency factor, particularly for the recreation component and for visuals with that. And the Plymouth National Forest is also a cooperating agency, so they have at the table with us for some of those other cross-jurisdictional.
We've had some issues in the past, like say with the Lassen National Forest and the Plymouth National Forest, not necessarily administering joint holdings or adjoining holdings in a fashion. It makes it really hard for the local citizens. And, we can do it over here, but we can't do it over there, and that creates law enforcement and other related type issues.
Supervisor Hammond?
Yeah. What are your definitions? Your definitions and my definitions might be different. What's your definition of limited?
Limited to existing roads and trails until travel management planning has been completed. That's our definition that we've been using. Like
So
I said,
you're restricting access for the general public on the established roads that are out there?
that's not correct.
I don't know what your
Limited means that you can travel on a road that exists right now.
Okay.
That's what that means. When we get to that travel management planning process, that's when we will actually get into the weeds and look at all of the roads out there and decide with the public input and our cooperating agency's input, Road A we're going to keep open, Road B is a duplicate road, goes to the same location as A, but we're going to close that for resource concern. But that's the next step of the planning process.
So who's going to enforce this? BLM law enforcement if you have closed roads and you have somebody on a four-wheeler there and you guys are going to go after them and find them, or what's that process?
The intent is, I don't know what the end product will look like because travel management planning is done after. The intent would be that it'll all be GIS based. There will be maps so that the public can know which roads are open and they'll be numbered. And then law enforcement, of course, has that ability to enforce laws.
Okay, so the public is going to have a lot of input on which is going to be opened and closed and limited, and is it going to be a decision made in Carson City that all of a sudden half of Lassen County's roads are closed?
It's similar to the Forest Service. I mean, basically, as soon as they get involved in this, the party's over.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
So,
That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah, and I don't want to get it to the point where nobody has a chance to get to their cows or their fences or all that stuff because there's a decision made in Carson City by BLM that, that's closed without any public input. That concerns me greatly.
It is a public process when we go into travel management planning. We will do public meetings. The document will be out for public review and comment, and those are considered before decisions. And Lassen County at that time, when we go into that area, can be a cooperating agency so that you are at the table with us when we make those decisions.
Supervisor Chapman had something to
Yeah, I have one question separate from what we were talking about earlier, and it's really has to deal more with the process. And is this a finite process, or is it an open-ended process when we talk about getting into travel management? Do you want to get semantics of limited versus open. And are we talking about having a decision being rendered open, and is there an end to the process that's going to happen within a quantified time period?
There is no time period specified at this point. Once we get through the resource management plan and we make that overarching umbrella decision that this area is limited or closed for that matter, that decision is made. Then we will go into travel management planning. Because we have 5 million acres of BLM land in our district, it's going to take us some time to gather road inventory data, to analyze that data, to look at the challenges and the overlapping resource concerns on certain roads, to get a document together, to put it out to the public. It will take a while. I'm not going to say it's going to be 5 years.
I appreciate the
don't
honesty
know.
of your answer, but let me give you a response and where I think the public is going to react. And I would strongly request, I hope that our board requests, that if that's the case, that you put us in an open category until the conclusion of that process rather than a limited category. And I'll tell you why. And I think this is the one that screams the loudest and involves BLM, unfortunately, and I'm a strong proponent of BLM. I've said for years that if we could get the Forest Service to operate as BLM, we'd all be better off. I told that to the chief of the U.S. Forest Service when we happened to be visiting here. So I have a passion about that, and Ken can back that up, having served on the Resource Advisory Committee for BLM in the past. The wilderness study areas were established back in the 80s by Congress, by the process, and they eliminated a whole bunch of the lands, turned it back to multiple use, whatever kind of targeted type use. We established a few wildernesses, and then there were some areas that were established to be wilderness study areas. And this was done basically back in the 80s. All the study reports were completed by the BLM staff by 1989, and basically has been sitting in Congress ever since. The problem when you create the study area, like putting it in a limited category without having the finite basis to the decision making, is for the last 25 years now, we've had hundreds of thousands of acres, not only just in our own region, but millions of acres really across the landscape of the West, that have been turned into de facto wilderness areas because they're pending study and there is no finite conclusion or action being taken. So if we're going to be put in a process that's going to be similar to that, where there's no end to the game, and we're going to be basically having to wait for a shoe to drop or whatever to happen, I would prefer that we be put into the open until going through whatever process. If you determine there's a water resource, there's a critter or whatever it may be that necessitates closing an area, and I think you'll find a lot of support with the community to do that based upon the scientific facts that needs to be closed as being the approach rather than this other direction. And I got to tell you, I'm afraid that if we support what you're suggesting in terms of open end, it's not going to be a good thing for the people of Lassen County. And I say that now early on. So if you can put us into the open category until you can prove that it needs to be closed rather than leaving us in this limbo, is knowing how Congress acts and knowing how the federal bureaucracies have acted over the last 25 to 40 years, we will not have justice and fairness.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was going to suggest that this would be a perfect issue to discuss the coordination council, maybe in more detail.
That was my comment would be, let's look at the coordination council that we have here, that's what it's for, and use that as a means to get it. I mean, my feeling is all it is a bureaucratic system to take public comment, and you already got the decision made ahead of time, just to get the public and communities off everything. Exactly where you're headed, and that's the way to go.
I would be happy to come back and talk to you.
Well, we have a county, we have a separate coordination council, and it'd be wonderful. Ken, from the Eagle Lake office, has been attending those meetings, and we've enjoyed a great relationship with BLM. And also, we've enjoyed a great relationship with the local forest supervisors. But the problem is, the decisions, are made, and we know that at a local level. So while we've had 4 supervisors that have been gracious and good to work with, the product that eventually comes down the pipeline is garbage. And, for instance, like people that have enjoyed wood cutting, let's just say, the plumas. I mean, you can't even go cut wood there. It's a joke. You can't go like 10 feet off the dirt road and go get your wood. And it's things like that, and it all starts off the same, with the presentation about how user-friendly it's going to be and how it's going to benefit the public. But at the end of the day, the decisions come from, high above, and you folks have the, you have to carry it out. And the end result's the same, and we're just fearful the end result's going to be like it is with the, Forest Service. And it's not good.
Can I suggest that the coordinating council is given the task to focus on the details pending that process right now? We have maybe drop back at a future meeting of this board, a general letter that we could send to Carson BLM folks stating basically the concerns we've just had. Not that we're taking a position, but I think strongly requesting that any Lassen County meetings be placed in the open category during the review period rather than the limited category. I think we need to state that as early on as possible.
And we certainly appreciate, I don't feel like you've arrived in hostile territory, because, but it's just that that's unfortunately the way things have come out. And so when, like I said, it's a great, I personally, enjoy the BLM area because I go sport a lot. And so, as soon as the government comes, like I said, these parties, greatly curtailed. And I can only hope that the results are a lot better off in the Forest Service travel management plan, because that's a disaster to me as far as the public access and ability to enjoy the forest.
Well, we certainly would welcome comments from the board.
And you will be surprised at how much support you will get from the local areas to address and tackle. Obviously, there are things that need to be curtailed and shut down on a case-by-case, targeted type fashion because of what is more than not a blanket.
Thank you.
Let me get to the last couple of slides. The slide 10 deals with lands and realty actions, and I really am focusing in on lands available for disposal. Within our land use plan, if it is not available for disposal, BLM cannot dispose of land without going through an amendment process. Currently in Lassen County, and it shows that reflects on slide 11, the areas in red. Currently, no land is available for disposal in Lassen County. Under Alternative E, we are proposing about 1,000 acres be made available for disposal. Yes. And our grazing specialists had worked with a permittee to help identify those areas. Now, if there are other lands that Lassen County would like to bring forward to us, now is the appropriate time. We can still make some adjustments. So if there's something else that the public comes up with, or that the board is brought to the board's attention.
When you dispose of these kind of lands, can you trade them for other lands you maybe want to acquire to enhance the area that you want to protect and manage? Is that a disposal technique?
That is one avenue for disposal, yes.
Maybe Ken can keep that in mind if we do some swapping of some lands, consolidate some of our lands on Ms. Johnson.
If it's within our disposal area, then it's a little easier than just planning it.
On that same page, the next one about lowest.
The ROW means right of way, utility corridors, roads, pipelines, lots of actions fall within the category of right of way. Within the document, we do have a definition, so you can go there. And there's also an acronym for that.
And what would be wind exclusion of
We have some areas within our district around, for example, the Virginia City National Historic Landmark that is a wind exclusion. No wind, utility scale wind could be proposed in that area. If there are areas for avoidance, wind falls under the right-of-way category. There are areas that we would like to avoid placing utility scale wind based on cultural values, visual values, wildlife values, those kinds of things kind of play in there. And some of the areas might be exclusion under one alternative and avoidance under another alternative. So things do vary.
And so do we have a map of your wind exclusion and avoidance? I don't see that.
It is not within the presentation, it is within the document. The document is available on the Carson City BLM webpage. It's 2,000 pages and a whole appendix, over 120 maps. And the GIS layer is available to the public. So,
2,000 pages,
it's an evening read.
120 maps. I'm so thirsty. Yeah, read it when you pass it. That's a good one.
So there's a lot. But like I said, the GIS layers are available so that they can be overlaid with specific county concerns. And you can see how
That's one of my concerns, that I would really like to address that if we see you again. Council meetings that we have. I would really like to see what is wind avoidance and wind exclusion.
there is none. Not that I can. I should take that back. The land with wilderness characteristics, the one area on the Peterson Mountain that does bleed over into Lassen County, is proposed as wind avoidance, I believe, under one of the alternatives. It's a small little portion in there.
Is the Interstate 11, Interstate 11,
No.
discussed in any of this?
No.
So if a new interstate came through your district, you wouldn't have any input on it?
I'm sure if it touched BLM land, we would certainly have input on it. That project would go through an environmental impact statement and probably require a land use plan. And at that time, we would make adjustments however we needed to work through that.
So the state of Nevada just recently adopted kind of basically their preliminary study, and they looked at different options and alternatives. And there's two of those options correct through the middle of your holdings.
And because that plan is 20 to 30 years out, it is really beyond the life of the resource management plan that we're working on right now.
Right? They're looking at a lot less than
They are.
20 or 30 years.
That differs from what I've been told from the NDOT staff. So, but we'll deal with it when it comes, absolutely.
Just curious, I didn't know if you would address it.
So the last slide is kind of the planning process, the step we're in right now. The document is out for a 120-day public review and comment period. That ends the end of March. Like I said, the document is available on our website. I do have CDs that I can mail out. If the public is interested. We are having public meetings in January. We are having one in Reno on January 13th, for 5 to 7 p.m. at the John Squatters Nugget. So we would certainly welcome Lassen County residents to come down and participate.
What time is it?
5 to 7 p.m. at John Squatters Nugget. All of the meetings that are tentatively planned and all the presentations to county boards and all of that are on that website identified. So that
Which date is that?
January 13th, it's a Tuesday. But there's lots of opportunities for the public to come.
Appreciate you coming. And then, so this will use the A
Yeah.
for coordination.
Mr. Chairman, we're way behind schedule here. I suggest we try to get through page 2, 3, 4, and 5 before we break for lunch. We have a lot of people here for those items.
So, people here for that, D2,
I'm sorry, I meant D2, 3. 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to give a short public comment on the item with the BLM before we move on? Yeah, I just hope it does well. I mean, it's, we want these things in. And there's no fault to the local people. Okay, let's take up item D2, Mountain Life.
Small tech presentation, so while we're setting that up, would like to introduce Brian Gray, Program Director of Mountain Lifeline, and Keith Crosby, our Mountain Lifeline General Manager. My name is Eugene Cherry.
Chairman, if I could interrupt a second. We have a lot of people outside on this agenda item. They need to be in.
This agenda.